Hello everyone and welcome to my review of the Operation Pontus campaign for the FA18 in DCS World. And this is really quite a different campaign from most of them in that it is a dynamic campaign, which is really quite an achievement, especially considering that DCS has no inbuilt integration for dynamic campaigns at all. Now, the dev teams have got around this by having set mission dates and times, but the actual enemy setup depends on a code which you're given at the end of the previous mission to say how you've done, and that sets up the enemies for the next mission, showing where they are on the map, what their air strength is, what their SAM strength is, and how much progress you have overall made in the campaign. The other thing that sets us apart from any campaign that I've played so far is you're not just the pilot, but you do get the role of kind of the actual wing commander. You decide what your 4 flights, including your own pair of planes, are doing each mission, what their loadout is, what their targets are. And so that gives you quite a lot of sort of a strategic layer, which you don't normally get in these campaigns. The setting, though, is pretty standard for DCS campaigns. This one is set in Georgia, with the idea being that revolutionaries tried to stage a coup. They somewhat failed, but still managed to get half of Georgia. The US is intervening and sending in a carrier group in order to assist the Georgian government re-establish control, while at the same time there are Russians nearby and a Russian carrier group who are hanging on the edges and generally threatening, but not taking any direct part. So that's how the campaign works. So is it a good campaign or not? Well, first I want to get some of the awkwardness out of the way. This is perhaps the most faffy campaign I've come across when it comes to actually starting. It takes quite a lot of prep work just to get going in the first place. As I said, you decide what all of your flights do, so you have to select the loadouts of each individual flight and your own flight. You need to set your own waypoint if you want to have a custom waypoint there. Then you have to enter in-game what each flight is doing once you've booted up the mission. And then after startup, you have to enter in the campaign code, which again is a bit awkward. You have to use the in-game communication system, and it's required really quite a lot of button pressures, repeating things over and over again to enter a 6-letter code. And then even when you're off the ground, if you want to set custom RTB conditions, which can be useful to avoid flights going in with just guns onto ground targets, you have to do some more setup there. Really, it doesn't take too long, but certainly if you are the kind of person who would be annoyed by that, just bear in mind you're going to have to do that at the beginning of every single mission. There are another few awkward points lying around. The AI wingman seems to consistently use up a lot more fuel than normal, and he'll only call bingo when he's actually too short of fuel to return home, so he crashes quite often. Also had some other Allied flights just crashing instead of being shot. And sometimes the Allied flights just seem to not want to follow their assigned orders and will instead just circle the carrier instead of doing ground attack. And if you've been watching my series, you'll see that JTAC seems rather weird on this one. I don't know if that's a DCS issue or a campaign issue, but JTAC overwhelmingly seems to only want to give commands to go in for guns. Even if you've got JSOWs or laser-guided bombs, they just tell you to go in for guns no matter what, even if the target site is surrounded in enemy air activity. The last little point really comes out of my campaign rather than the campaign in general, but it really got easier as it went on, so it's not really a difficulty curve as much as a difficulty slope sliding off. Because as you establish better air supremacy, as you take out the seed sites, your next missions become easier and easier, and by the end there was really no threat at all, and it was just going through the motions. That was okay, I was quite enjoying the ground pounding, but if you're looking for a more structured approach, though things get more and more challenging as you go on, you probably want to look elsewhere. But with those bad points out the way, let's take a look at the things that really do work with this campaign. And I've got to say, the dynamic nature of the campaign really does work fantastically. it really gives you this sense of making progress where if you manage to do a good flight, take out multiple enemy aircraft, well, then the next time they're just not going to have those aircraft. You knock out the enemy MiG-29s, and as the campaign goes on, you're going to be facing weaker and weaker until they're just putting out a couple of MiG-21s, really not posing much of a threat to you. And the fact that you're slowly progressing through a series of sectors really gives you that sense of progression, which some campaigns kind of lack, where you're just doing mission after mission. This one, you can really see your progress going as you're sort of backing the enemy into a corner. And they've got some really nice maps that pop up there. Also, as a fan of sort of strategy games, I really enjoyed the strategic element. I really liked being able to tell my planes to do what I wanted, be able to make those decisions of how many flights do I send up on cap? Do I worry about doing seed on this mission? How many can I afford to send in to do the close airstrikes? And for those close airstrikes, what are they going to be dropping? Do I want them to take lots of small bombs where they're going to be lingering a lot overhead? Or do I just want to send them in with Maverick so they can get in, get out quickly without taking damage? And that just basically adds a whole other part of the game. You've got the flying part, which is in all DCS campaigns. You've also got the strategic layer, which I really appreciated. And as for the voice acting, I'd say it's a bit hit and miss. Some of the voice acting is excellent, some of it is really quite lacking. The real one that drops it is the actual player character's voice acting is just really bland, really dull for me, really doesn't seem like an actual pilot, generally just seems like a gamer reading out a list of instructions. But then the other flight's voice acting is a lot better, and there's a whole load of background voice acting that is absolutely spot on. Honestly, I would not be surprised if some of it was taken from actual combat situations. The only downside there is it seems to play somewhat randomly, so you'll have background voice acting coming over the comms involving flights engaging other flights when there's no enemy aircraft in the region. But one nice really hidden thing I'd say about the strategic element that you don't really get in a lot of other campaigns is you can really choose what you feel like doing that day. If you feel like getting into air combat, well, you send yourself up on a cap flight, let the other flights handle the ground stuff. If you want to try ground attacking, then you set yourself up for that. It's also really good if you're learning the F18, as I sort of was beginning the campaign, because you can pick and choose what weapons you want to take along. So you can take the JSOW if you want to get used to those. You can take the SLAM ERs if you want to give those a go. Really gives you, the player, a lot of control over what you want to do, rather than just being handed a task. So then, to wrap it up, would I recommend this? Well, I'm going to recommend this strongly to two very different groups of players. First set is people who are in the situation I was. If you're just starting out in the FA18, kind of know, but you want to get some more practice in, this is a fantastic campaign. The fact that you can pick and choose your missions really, really helps, and the fact that you can give yourself support to go on a particular strike if you want to. So if you're doing air supremacy but you're not 100% sure, you can put another flight in the same sector as you to give you that support. That really helps really ease you into this, lets you learn one weapon at a time, really, really good. And because you're doing carrier landings, you do finally get a hang of that after all the missions. The other kind of extreme other end of the scale is if you've done a whole load of FA18 campaigns, you've worn them all into the dirt, you just want to be able to do something replayable. This is a really replayable campaign because of the dynamic nature. You can just redo the entire thing, try and complete it in fewer missions, try and complete it with fewer losses. And so whether you're very experienced or not really experienced at all, I'd say this is worth it. Otherwise, really, as long as the faffing around isn't going to put you out, it's a really good campaign, really fun experience, and I certainly had a lot of fun doing this series. And if you would like to just see some more of the campaign, if you haven't seen it already, I will be putting a link to the entire series at the end of this video, and I've gone through my own playthrough. Shouldn't really be any spoilers since my playthrough will be different from yours. If you found this useful, please do leave a like and or subscribe, and leave a comment down below saying if you agree with me. Would you recommend this? Is the faffing around too much for you, or did you not notice it at all? But otherwise, I hope to catch you in the next video and hopefully the next DCS series. Until then, remember to be kind to yourself and everyone else. Cheers.